What's up, guys? I'm back with Diablo 4 and we're back at Sanguine Chapel yet again. This time I want to showcase my Sorc build. I finally found the combo I like and a combo that feels good to use. And as you can see, it works pretty fucking nicely. It just completely destroys enemies. My only issue right now is not having enough cooldowns. I think this can become more spammy if you just get more cooldowns. But it's kind of hard to get it right now in beta because we have so limited skill points, and it feels like you want to grab many things and you just don't have enough points for it. But yeah, even in the beta, it still feels very strong. I feel like it will go so much higher once we actually get enough points, so you can max out the fucking skills. So like Frost Nova is the most important one to me, because each point will reduce the cooldown of it, so we can actually get it back faster. It becomes more spammy. So yeah, like that's what I'm looking forward to. So the combo is basically I have two legendary aspects that together they make it so the passive ability that we have, which is this Ice Shard's enchantment, it just like explodes and penetrates everyone, and it just kills everything. Pants are super whatever. So I quite like this build. The only thing I don't like as much right now is the boss damage, but to me it's more of a issue specifically because I don't have enough gear. I did not farm enough on Sorc, so I didn't get too many legendaries, and because of that I feel like I'm like in the back, on the back foot here. So like from legendary aspects that I know for sure I want to get is the second Hydra. Like that for sure will help a lot for boss damage. So that's like one of the things that are pretty obvious to improve on in terms of boss damage. But other than that, like the clear feels very good.
I need time to do
But
that.
okay, I will talk more about the gear and combinations later when we defeat the boss. One thing to mention is also that the fact that I'm not planning on doing this more in depth like I did with Necro. I feel like with Necro I got enough legendaries and I got enough like practice to be able to do like more in depth and explain. Here it just, you know, wow, pants yet again. Here is just mostly it just feels good, like something finally clicked and it makes sense, and I just wanted to showcase it. So this is not optimized fully at all, so just keep that in mind. With more points though, I really do think the potential is big for this build. So alright, let's get to the boss now and let's see how it performs. Before I go to it, your boss fights are kind of limited. You spawn in Hydra, you use your Frost Nova to inflict vulnerable on the boss. You can then spam your Ice Shards until your mana runs out. You have your Ice Armor for the defenses. If you get stunned or CC'd by the boss, you can get out of it with Ice Armor. And then you have your ultimate skill, which, I mean, I just slapped it in here because why not? This one, it just keeps you protected while doing very nice damage. and it gives you a chance to regen your mana back, so when you come out of it you can spam more of your ice shards. So that's the idea here. So okay, so let's go again. We use the Hydra, we use the E, and then we just spam our frost stuff. We can use F skill or we can use R skill, doesn't matter, to get out of the CC, and it just dies. So not too bad. Like, it's not as amazing as I did on Necromancer, but Necromancer was more min-maxed than my Sorc. My Sorc doesn't have, for example, a good weapon, right? My Necromancer had level 20 something weapon. Sorc only has level 15, so immediately everything has lesser damage in comparison. From, like, I mean, you can even look at the attack power, right? It's way lower than Necromancer. But yeah, other than that, the important aspects from your skills, or from your gear rather, is the barrier stuff. This one is not like super important. It's nice to have still. You will get a barrier every time you damage elite. I just have it because I rely on having barrier to do damage. Might as well have it, since this is a defensive aspect. I don't think there's many good defensive aspects on Sorc. At least I didn't see many that are good. So it doesn't really matter too much. But it's not important. Like, if you don't have it, that's fine. This one is pretty important. It gives you an extra charge to your Frost Nova, so you can use it twice. This one definitely core. It puts the Frost Nova on higher cooldown, but you get it so much faster that, you know, I think it's fine. You can make a case that this is not necessary if you can get your cooldowns low enough, because I'm pretty sure this on base is just 10, right? Actually it's not 10. It's 15, I think. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because it's not 50%. So okay, so it's 15 cooldown. You can reduce it by 6 if you kill 3 enemies. And so you're still left off with 9 seconds. You can increase the skill of it, and I think each skill reduces it by 1 second. So if I put 4 more points, right? Yeah, I can put 4 more points into it, so that's 4 seconds plus 6, that's 10. And the base one is 15 seconds, so you still need to shave off 5 seconds, but I can see the world where later down the game you would be able to reduce it to 6 seconds base, and then if you kill enemies it will go back on cooldown immediately, right? Or back off cooldown immediately. So so again, like, that enchantment might not be must have if you can get it to 6-second base cooldown. I just don't think you can hit it in beta, probably not. The next thing that's very, very important, and this is basically the thing that enabled this build, is this one, which makes your ice shard pierce 4 enemies, and you deal 23% less damage per every subsequent enemy hit, meaning the first enemy gets full damage, the next enemy that gets hit by ice shard gets only like reduced by 23%, and then the next one by another 23%, and so on, right? You don't need to put this shit on your weapon or on your necklace, because we don't need more piercing than that. 4 times is enough, and 23% damage is whatever. Like, yeah, sure, you could do a bit more damage if you put it on weapon, but I think it's a waste. It doesn't really matter. Just on regular gear, the regular strength of this enchantment is good enough. So okay, this one completely irrelevant. Again, like I said, defensive stats. for Sorc. I don't really have that many that are, you know, cool to have. This one is okay. I guess you get the unstoppable with your ice armor for 2 seconds, and that combined with the boots, you get almost 20% more movement speed, 25 max, and you can move through enemies. So it's while you're unstoppable, and 2 seconds after unstoppable. So overall, you can get like 5 seconds here, right? Total of movement speed, but it's on cooldown. It's on 20-second cooldown, so it's not like you can just spam and run for enemies. So again, like it's whatever. I would need to see more legendaries to figure out like better enchantments on those things. So okay, the next thing here is the ring. The ring doesn't matter. Again, didn't get enough to put anything relevant here. So there's a lot of room to improve this build still. Alright, onto the 3 pieces that actually do matter a lot. The weapon, you've seen this before. You deal 66% increased damage while you have the barrier active. So that's again a lot of damage, and that's why I said like I'm reliant on having my barrier up to do the damage. The next one is you deal 20% increased damage. It goes up to 30% to vulnerable enemies while you have barrier. Again, you need to have barrier for extra damage, and you need to make them vulnerable. And the last one is you deal 38% up to 40% max more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies. So all those 3 things actually get covered by one skill, which is this, by Frost Nova. Why? The reason why is it freezes enemies, right? So we get the damage from frozen enemies. It makes them vulnerable because I took the modifier for it, for 8 seconds for bosses and 4 seconds for regular enemies. So we do more damage to vulnerable targets too, but also vulnerable itself gives us 20% increased damage. So another damage increase. And then finally the barrier. We actually do get barrier from using Frost Nova, and the reason for that is because we have the point here. Using a cooldown grants 10% of your maximum life as barrier for 5 seconds. That means, since this is pretty spammable, the moment we press it, immediately we get the barrier and we get the bonus damage from all the sources. So again, like this combo is very nice, and it works so well together. Because you constantly get the vulnerable extra damage, you constantly get the frozen extra damage, and you constantly get the barrier extra damage. The only time you don't get the frozen damage, and the reason why I don't have this on necklace and I have the vulnerable one instead, is because you cannot freeze the bosses. So this one will not give you that extra damage, but against normal enemies for clearing, yes, absolutely. So this is the gear. Again, it can be optimized way better too still. One of the things that I definitely would want to put on one of those pieces is the extra Hydra, so we can double DPS with Hydras. That would improve the damage by quite a bit on the boss. So that's like one improvement that's obvious, and other than that, I would have to just see more gear to see. Alright, onto the skills then. So for the enchantments here, we are using the ice shards, and we actually are using this for both bosses and enemies. The reason why we're using it for bosses is because there's just nothing else that's better to pick right now. Maybe later, when we actually get more points and get the skill tree going, we can maybe grab, you know, like you could probably still grab Hydra for the boss itself, like sure. I don't know if you will be able to spend 300, maybe you would spend 300 mana, but right now it's just like unreliable, and it's a 5-second extra DPS. Like, it doesn't hurt, right, if you really want to swap it for the boss, but I don't think it's that important. Like, you could take defensive enchant here with Flame Shield, for example. So when you take fatal damage, it's basically cheat death mechanic. So when you were supposed to die, you don't die. But on softcore, I don't know how that matters, honestly. I don't feel like it will matter that much. So from other things, I guess you can use Ice Blades, for example. So for every 20 seconds you spend, you get Ice Blades, and you get 60 seconds here on Deep Freeze, which is 3 Ice Blades. You get 20 seconds here, which is another Ice Blade, and then each of this is 19 seconds. So you know, if you spam it, like all of it, then you get 2 Ice Blades, 3, 4, 5, 6 Ice Blades overall. So that could be decent option here. Like, I think this probably is like the best enchant you can pick from all of those right now for boss. But again, not needed in our case, to be honest. Like, it's just not needed. I think this one could be also decent with Lucky Hit, because then the Hydras would be able to unleash Frost Nova, but I feel like you need to have a bit more Lucky Hit oriented stuff here. So yeah, so this is for the enchants. Now, in terms of actual skills, we take 2 points into whatever in the first 3. We don't use those spells, so it doesn't matter. The next skill tree, we max out Ice Shards, and we grab the enchantment here, so it will ricochet off the frozen enemies, or have a chance to ricochet off the frozen enemies. Not super important, but it's nice to have it. It provides a little bit more damage for sure when you clear enemies and stuff. But we want this one, which makes it so when you have barrier, the Ice Shards will treat enemies as frozen, which again, there's combos off of our setup, because when we use our Frost Nova, we make the targets vulnerable and we make them frozen, right? So, sorry, not frozen. We make them vulnerable, and then we make it so the Ice Shards can do more damage, right? So, because they treat the bosses as frozen, and we also get the barrier because we use the cooldown, suddenly Ice Shards do a lot of damage, and they do even more here because of the bypass, right? So you get like what, 15%, I think it was. Yeah, Ice Shards 15%. Oh no, 25%, because it says deals 25% increased damage to frozen enemies, since this bypasses it with your barrier, and you will have barrier all the time. You just do 25% more damage, so that's nice. The next skill tree here, we don't take anything in terms of skills other than Frost Nova, and the like here you want to basically get a piece of gear that gives you points into ice armor so you can grab it, but at least for now I'm not grabbing points into it because the stuff you get here is not that relevant. Like 25% increased mana regeneration while you have the ice armor it's okay, but it's not that important. And then, you know, you get more armor back while you hit enemies, and you get more armor if you hit vulnerable. So it's like, it doesn't really matter with our setup. Like later down the line I could see it maybe if you can sustain the barrier longer. I think there are some like duration notes here. Let's see, I think it was, yeah, this one, right? Increased duration. Maybe if you can get like some other things and extend the duration of this barrier, then maybe it makes more sense. But other than that, yeah, you only need the 1 point to just have the skill. so you can slot it in. Now for the Frost Nova, you grab it because we need to grab both of those enchantments. They're pretty fucking important for this build. This one makes it so you reduce the cooldown of Frost Nova by 2 seconds up to 6 seconds with every enemy kill. So that means if you kill 3 enemies, you get the maximum 6 seconds reduction, and that's very important for us, so we can spam it more. And this one is again very important because it makes the enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds and bosses for 8 seconds. This is huge. You can actually, I think, get the cooldown relatively fast back, so you can keep up the vulnerable almost all the time on boss, if not all the time, with some maybe more cooldown reduction, which is super nice. And then 3 points into Glass Cannon, which, yeah, just more damage, and you take more damage. Okay, next skill tree. Here's where we need to grab the Hydra. Again, this is for bossing stuff. You can use the Hydra for clearing if you want to, but to me that's additional button I have to press and stop to summon, so I don't bother. Again, Frost Nova plus Ice Shards is good enough for me. So we max out the Hydra. We grab the healthy enchant, which makes it so you actually spawn 4 heads instead of 3 heads. If you're healthy, meaning above 80% life, and we should be since we get the barriers all the time, we shouldn't really be in danger. Now the second enchant, I'm not sure which one is actually better for DPS. This one gives critical strike to your Hydras if you critical strike. So Hydras crit more often, and so they do more damage. That sounds good to me. This one also sounds okay. Hydra will burn enemies for additional 12% of its base damage over 6 seconds. Base damage of my Hydras is 273 maximum per head, which I don't like. That's what, 27, a little more than 27 damage over time. Times 4, that's like 100 more damage. But I don't know if it's like stacks or not on top of each other. It's very hard to say for me which one is actually better. I would have to just do DPS test, but yeah, I mean, eventually I'll figure out which one is better, which one feels better. And then we want to grab 1 point here. It doesn't matter, it gives damage reduction. That's not what we're for. We're for the protection. So when we use cooldown, we get the barrier. It doesn't really matter if we max it out. Like later with more points, sure, it would be nice to just have more fat shield, but for now it doesn't matter. We just need to get any barrier at all, so we get all of our bonus damage and mechanics up. So next skill tree, we grab literally nothing. Nothing here is necessary for us, at least for the beta. Again, later maybe you can grab duration here, some lucky hits to chill and to freeze. I don't think it's too relevant for our build. So, and then in the last tree we grab the deep freeze. Again, this is a nice offensive / defensive buy time skill, so we can get our mana back and our cooldowns back, so we can go back into the boss with the, like, second part of our damage and our combo. And then I had one left over point, which I didn't really know where to put it, so I just put it here. Crush skills deal 5% increased damage to elites, which I'm not sure if that counts bosses. I'm assuming it should, but it also might not count bosses. So it was just one leftover point. There's nothing really here to put into like other skills. So alright, that's it for skills for the most part. I just wanted to mention again, like, the combo it relies on. So we get a lot of damage with barrier up, and a lot of bonuses, right? So when we cast Frost Nova, we get the barrier because we spent cooldown, we freeze enemies, and then when we freeze enemies, this activates, automatically conjure and fly towards frozen enemies, the ice shards, right? And then we also have this, which makes them pierce. So what ends up happening is we freeze enemies, we get the barrier, we get extra damage. Now, since people or all the enemies are frozen, automatically everyone gets hit by one ice shard, but also they pierce, and it just creates this huge amount of damage in AoE, and everyone just dies. I mean, that's basically what happens there. And because they die while they were frozen, we get the 6 seconds back in the cooldown. So again, once we get points, when we stack this, I'm sure we can get it back immediately. So when you hit it and you hit 3 enemies, you immediately get the cooldown back. Then you won't even need the extra charge for it. You will be just able to, you know, just click it whenever it's off cooldown, and you see at least 3 enemies next to you. So this is the build. I like it quite a lot. There can be some probably improvements to boss killing stuff, but once the game comes out, I will try to make a better Sorc. I'm mostly interested in Necromancer, but I also want to make this Sorc work too. So those are like the 2 classes I want to focus on mostly. So I'll try to make an updated build once we get the full game. But that's it from me, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.